a very special innovators panel now, and I'm going to be moderating this. These guys will do 98% of the work. But the first thing that we did as a group was to say that the title issues foremost to innovators. No, we're scratching that. So sorry, Misha, we're moving it, we're changing it. Our new title is Harnessing Innovation Spirits to Create Breakthrough, and there's going to be an emphasis on breakthrough, an emphasis on not as much on the pure innovation part, but that implementation. And today, our discussion was that we could go through bios, but those are written down. You can read about them. You may already know all about these fine gentlemen, but we're going to replace their bio with a single word. And so I will introduce, and we'll go starting Jeff Grant on the far right here. He is our hurdler. And Chris Estes will be our collaborator, and Devon Ryan will be our director. And so we chose those words, collaborator, hurdler, and director, as words that discuss the way that innovation plays out, right? What happens? So you got that idea, now what? So we're going to kick it off, and we'll try to leave a couple minutes at the end for some questions, but we'll see. I don't know. These guys talk very quickly and have great ideas, which could be problematic. But we're going to start with Chris, who's going to talk about a culture of innovation.
Great, thanks, James. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate the invite. So I'm the former state CIO for the state of North Carolina, and I learned coming into that role that we had multiple agencies and what I like to call cylinders of excellence. Other people call them silos, of people working independently of each other. And what that led to was a lot of cost and a lot of expense. And so what we created was an innovation center where we brought in the state employees along with higher education, vendor partners, to start to innovate and bring new ways of working together in government. The story I like to tell, this was a decade ago. We had touchscreen, so we're just coming out in the market, if you're familiar with touchscreens, right? So we wanted to use touchscreens in the DMV offices to help reduce the lines. It's funny, they still have a line problem there. But in using the DMV touchscreens, we had those there, we were using them, people walked up, they were all playing with them and touching them, and someone goes, ooh, these things are getting nasty. I don't want to touch these screens. And we're like, that's a good point. Those are, well, let's put a hand sanitizer pump next to the touch screen. So another innovation of putting business process around that. And then it came, well, who's going to clean the screens each night in the DMV offices? Who's going to fill the hand sanitizer, right? So you start to think about, by testing and piloting things and having people from different backgrounds and work environments come together and collaborate, really start to solve real business problems. And that was the spirit of what this created. The funniest part was no one knew what the hand sanitizer would do to the screens. And they were on loan from the vendor community. I won't name the vendor that provided the screens. They might even be in this room. But we decided to just smear hand sanitizer all over the screens every day. We would smear them and they still worked. So hand sanitizer did not affect the screens as best we could tell in our limited pilot. So anyway, that's is really about collaboration and bringing people together. And I think that's the way we get better outcomes.
All right, Jeff, known to blow things up when he was a kid, the perfect person to talk about the hurdle to get past things. So identifying friction and barriers and what you do about that.
All right, thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to be here. I actually had dinner with Devon last night, met him for the first time. And so Misha let me know 2 weeks ago I got my 117th patent. And thank you. And Devon's like, hey, so all those, what's your favorite one? And like, I don't even think about it. And I realized I don't really care about the inventions, but I said, I can tell you all the moments behind the inventions that were important to either clients or teammates or just the projects. And it really came down to like how to win in business, in projects, in innovation. It's really about making it happen. And so one of the stories I'm most proud of, I was telling you about, was InVue at the time. I was head of innovation up until 4 weeks ago when I quit. Launched a hedge fund on September 1st, so doing something different now. But before that, I remember we were doing retail security. One of our employees had a contact at a big company that did data centers, and they had a security project, and they said, hey, would you guys be willing to entertain an RFP? And so we had no business being in that place, but they gave us this process. They said, hey, you have like 6 days to produce a proposal based on this brief. We looked at it. I said, I really understand their problem space. It makes a lot of sense, but their solution proposal I didn't agree with at all. But they had a very constrained process for the RFP. The slot of how you had to present that information was very constrained. So I went to our contact. I said, listen, we'll do this, but what we're going to propose is not what they asked for. It's what they need, not what they asked for. And so what we need you to do is get a pre-agreement that we will produce everything they asked for as they asked for it on a Friday, but they need to give us a personal audience on Monday. I'm going to fly up to the West Coast to meet them. And so that happened. We went there on a Monday, and I'm in this room, and they gave us this junior project manager as a courtesy to the request. And I had built a quarter scale rack to fit in my travel carry-on case. So I can build it up in 2 minutes and show them this concept that was different from what they asked for. I got about 3 minutes into it, was pitching it, and then this guy was on his phone texting. I thought, well, should I wait for him to get done texting? Because it seems kind of rude. I flew all the way out here from Charlotte, and he's not even paying attention. Well, I didn't realize he was texting the executive director to show up for this pitch. And this guy comes in, I could tell he had kind of a hot demeanor. He came in with very pointed questions, and about 7 questions later, overcame all those objections. His tone went to, this is interesting. I think we can work with this. The meeting room time expired. They had to get kicked out. We went into the hallway. The meeting went on for 30 more minutes. And then he said, listen, we're going to make a decision this Friday. If you can turn around the updated proposal with a couple information we just talked about, we'll consider it. We went out to dinner that night with a friend of my colleague who had to recuse himself from the process because he was in procurement and he had a pre-existing relationship. And he said, oh, how did it go? And Jason, my colleague, said, oh, it went really well. And Matt came in. And, wait, Matt came in? And how did that go? I was like, well, he was kind of upset at first, but we landed in a pretty good place. I said, why are you asking? He said, well, I was a fly on the wall on Friday when all the proposals came in. And when your proposal from InVue came in, when they got done reading it, that guy said, those guys don't know what the F they're doing. And he threw it to the side. And so the fact that you were able to get him to listen to you was pretty interesting. Fast forward, Thursday, we did the final presentation with the revised information. Friday, we got the call that we won the business. And from there on out, we got into critical infrastructure out of that RFP. So to me, winning is about like identifying those barriers of friction and finding creative ways to overcome them. Because if you didn't do that, the best idea never would have came to light because the structure got in the way.
All right, so Devon is our director. So you've been in a situation where you've got all kinds of different people around you. How do you rein in that chaos, and how do you get them seeing the vision and moving forward creatively and innovatively?
Yeah, definitely been in that situation quite a few times. I guess a little bit of background. I actually started a software company as soon as I graduated college, and we developed mobile apps for Fortune 500 companies, and then our own consumer products. We did a little bit of innovation. Had this wine app, thought was going to be like, I was going to sell for $1 billion. It was a wine tasting app. That didn't go anywhere. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to build, and I learned a lot about entrepreneurship. But yeah, for filmmaking, that's my passion, and I think the through line for me, whether it's software, whether it's film, is just not waiting for permission. And I mean, there's just so many barriers, right? There's institutional barriers, corporate barriers, funding barriers. And, when it comes to film, I started off as an actor, and I just couldn't wait around for an audition, right? I wanted to tell stories. And that's whenever I decided to create my own projects, become a director. I started directing car commercials, and I was able to, whet my appetite creatively and also hone in some skills that have been, essential. So for example, breaking down barriers, what I learned as a director is that you might, it's not really all about what you put on the screen. It's actually how you align the people behind the scenes. So you're working with a cross-functional group of people. You have investors, you have actors, you have crew. And it's really about, as a director, how do you make them see the film in your head? Well, you can't, right? So you have to be able to find ways to make your vision very clear to them. And as a filmmaker, you're essentially telling the story about the story, right? And I think if you explain the vision as clear as possible, you're able to essentially get people on board to help you solve problems on set and also contribute their best ideas. So for example, a producer might have budget constraints. That's what they care about. The actor wants to explore. They just want to explore on set. And then your cinematographer just wants to make everything beautiful, right? And as long as I'm just communicating the vision to them, I think these different personas creates friction, or tension as a barrier, but that's where you get creative, like Jeff was mentioning. And so a producer might say, hey, well, we have this budget constraint. You don't get all the lighting equipment you need, cinematographer. Well, he might create a new lighting technique that didn't exist to light the scene that actually makes the scene stronger. And it's stuff like that that you want to tap into and reinvent, stay strong on the vision, but reinvent the path to get there along the way.
Josh, we doing okay on time? What do we got?
No, we started 5 minutes late, so we're gonna call an audible and go a little bit longer. Yeah,
Okay, so we're going to go till, sorry,
yeah, we should be fine on the 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay.
10 minutes.
So for Chris, on a follow-up on the barriers, I know you've worked with government, you've worked with education. Those are not two institutions that people think of for fast moving, right? How do you get innovation through, and how do you get innovation flowing through with that environment?
Well, I think you're right. They're not known for fast, but there's a lot of big corporations I've had the pleasure of working for that aren't very fast either. I think the secret, though, is back to the collaboration and getting people together. So the magic happens when people with different backgrounds and skill sets are given the opportunity to do something they weren't. So the cool part when we created the Innovation Center in North Carolina with the governor, it was to give the employees the opportunity to do the things that they weren't given permission to do before, right? And so that created the innovation. They're like, "What, you mean we can put hand sanitizer on the screen?" Well, yeah, just do it. Just smear it all, and it ended up being fun. I was telling someone earlier, when I was in the role, I was asked to, through the North Carolina General Assembly, decided for some reason the state CIO needed to be over drone technology. So I was over the drone technology, and to fly a drone in the state of North Carolina in 2012 and 13, you actually had to have my permission. Just saying. Why they picked me, I don't know. But the interesting thing about the drone technology is we had in the Innovation Center, some companies donated drones. In the building that this drone that we had, the Innovation Center had like a center stack that was like 5 stories high. So I go in one night at about 9 o'clock to check on a big grand opening thing that we were having. And there's the drone flying inside the building. So I'm like, "Do you guys have my permission to fly that drone?" They're like, "No." They were all upset that I was going to fire them. But the irony of it was the law was written that the drone it was only for outside use. So technically, by law, I didn't have authority over the drone flying inside the building, so they were safe. And that was what they told me, is they pulled out the law, as I was pretty pissed off about the situation. But
All right,
anyway,
Jeff, how do you create the magic for no money?
Oh, so that comes from my early days as an inventor. I was a toy inventor for 10 years. So I was in my 20s, and the business model was very interesting because it was speculative. So we would invent concepts, build prototypes, videos, any kind of expressions to help pitch to like Mattel, Hasbro, Fisher-Price. And we didn't get paid unless they accepted it, it went to market, and then we got a royalty. We might get like a small advance in front, but essentially everything we did was speculative on our side. So we had to be very judicious around how we spent money because most of the things didn't pay off. So it was very kind of like a venture fund in a way. But the other half of that, I call it a lot of magic for no money, is even if we had a great idea, people thought it'd be easy to be a toy inventor. Like, "Oh, that's such a fun job. You just invent things and it just happens," right? No, the ideas are super easy. Affording the ideas is super difficult. So everything's in a slot, right? It's a very tight margin business. So they'll have a $25 slot, a $17 slot, $12 slot, $8 slot. Then they have a bill of materials. And then they say, "Well, this is how much you get for your feature." So if you want to invent a feature and get a royalty on it, you got to find a way to produce all that magic for like basically no money. So actually, one of my proudest invention kind of transformations from toy invention to InVue was I had this idea for this Thomas the Train interactive learning set for like a guided play for kids. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if you could have like Thomas the Train or Percy, the train car itself, be aware of all the cars connected to it? Couldn't it be great if it knew where it was at Soder Station or wherever, and then it could guide the child, say, "Hey, I see you're here. Let's pick up the corn. Let's take it here, and then let's see what happens." So that's an easy idea, and like you could throw microchips at it, and that's solvable. But that's adding literally dollars to BOM costs, and we had cents of BOM costs. So I remembered from my E40, I can't remember what it was. It was like a preliminary electrical engineering course around this idea of a voltage divider circuit, which is super simple. And so for basically 25 cents, I came up with a system that had one little 555 timer in the engine. Each car had its own little unique resistor, and it had this massive lookup table that could determine, based on the combinations of all those resistors, like what was there, and then it would respond accordingly. So we were able to license a product, produce the magic of probably dollars worth of BOM cost for literally like 25 cents. And so a lot of what we did was just sort of finding how do you make it work, because we didn't get credit for just the idea. We got credit for proving that it was feasible too.
All right, well, everyone in this room works really, really hard. Why don't I cue up Devon to talk about his newest film project now. I know this is going to solve some of that. Well, not solve, make this worse, I guess. So you want to talk about the project?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I guess, not long ago, working meant going to one job one 9 to 5, you're going into the office, there's a cubicle, right? Well, since the rise of the pandemic, now people work remotely. And there's actually a group of people out there, this is a phenomenon called being overemployed. So they're secretly working multiple full-time jobs. And I have a background in tech. I have a lot of friends who are doing it. It's a way to make money really, really quickly. There's an ethical gray area. They're not telling their bosses, hey, I got a whole nother job, whole nother 9 to 5 that you don't know about. If you Google overemployed, go to the news tab, you'll see a bunch of articles from Wall Street Journal, Business Insider. This is a thing that's happening and it's getting written about. So full disclosure, all right, I was in tech. I worked multiple jobs at one point to fund, remember I don't wait for permission, to fund some of my own short films. And I took that disposable income and I made some short films. And next thing I know, I won a few awards and I was like, wow, showed these to some people, ended up getting paid to direct. So I was like, great, I'm gonna start a film production company. Fast forward to where I am today, that's why I'm making a movie about it. I have a personal connection to it. But we're basically following a man who's secretly trying to save his family home. I'm sorry, he's trying to save his family home by secretly working multiple remote jobs, but it's a chaotic lifestyle. So he ends up making a mistake. And he has to go into the office, which nobody wants to do. He goes back into the office to try to fix this mistake. And while he goes there, he discovers a corporate scheme that threatens to blow up his entire double life and his whole system. So that's the premise. Yeah.
Well, we all know that Misha does double work as heading up ideas, but also breakdancing on the side too. So
Oh, there you go.
it's not lucrative yet, but it's getting there though. Yeah, it's getting there. So maybe we have time for a question from the audience about a barrier or an invention or an idea of how to get past something, how to get things moving. I know someone. Hang on. We
The person working in state government. Can you do a dump of the DMV administrative database and their operations, and then ask Perplexity or Grok to come up with a system that works better?
I wish it were that easy. I think the problem with the DMV offices is right now is just the growth in North Carolina. You have 115 offices that's been static for the last decade, and you have a 20% growth of people in North Carolina, and the two just don't mix. So they're understaffed. North Carolina General Assembly did fund additional staff for their offices in the last session, so I think you should start to see some improvement for that. I'm not here to represent the state, but I do follow that and hear about it.
I think we had a question over here. No? Yes.
How do you penetrate some of the data sources that your AI search doesn't go into? I was looking at some election data and I was trying to get back to some comparisons between one election and another, and it just didn't have access to that content, and I had to go into the source myself and pull out specific content to add it into the AI so they could make the comparison. Is there any way are there any AIs that have more access to good sources than others? Do we have to change the law so that government-owned databases become available to AI? Are you thinking about that?
I mean, any one of you, Devon or Jeff?
I don't have anything on that one.
You're really talking about something I've talked about a lot is technology moves faster than government can pass laws. And so you're dealing with this space right now around data management, privacy, that the law hasn't catched up with where the technology is. So I think you'll see, the Governor Stein does have a policy committee on AI, and this is probably one of the topics they're working on.
And Devon, you want to?
Yeah, I do want to tie this to AI. There's a big question mark on the future of work. There's a lot of tension around, what's going to happen to a lot of these white collar jobs. We have the rise of the gig economy, and then of course inflation, people not being able to afford a home. That's what this movie is trying to answer. With the rise of AI, people, working, like, how's that going to change our work life? And I just wanted to tie the whole AI concept, the future of work, to your presentation on AI as well. So that's why I think this is a very important opportunity to tell the story cinematically about the future of work.
Are we?
We're right in time.
We're in time. All right. Well, thank you guys. Oh. If you guys have questions, you could also come up, I mean, at the break, but.
Hot topic. Hot
My
topic.
time is up.
Is it understaffed because the central systems, software systems aren't doing a very good job? Or something else?
All right, I'll answer the question just so everybody can hear it. The DMV environment runs on a mainframe COBOL software that's not been updated in 30 years. And so there is a RFP out at the state level to select a new technology platform. And so that'll take a couple years to get implemented. But so yes, old technology.
And if you
But
want
very
to,
good technology, by the way. We have IBM in the room, the mainframe guy, so I'm sure he could help improve it.
and if you want to bid for that RFP, you just pull a ticket, right? And then you can get in line.
All right, thanks.